Hi guys, so we are going to take care of really this last section for our unit, which is 2.7, solving for a specific variable on page 17 in your packet. So make sure we're on page 17. Basically, we're going to use all of the same steps we've been using to solve our equations. So we're still going to be thinking all about those opposite operations. However, instead of having a bunch of numbers to work with and only one letter, we're going to have lots of letters to work with. And so we're not going to get a specific answer like x equals 5. Really, it's all about rearranging what we have to get one very specific letter by itself. So if we look at page 17, it says solving for a specific variable. Some equations contain more than one variable. You can be asked to solve these equations for one of the variables. So if you look at number 1, we have solved 3x minus 4y equals 7 for letter y. But because there's also a letter x, I'm not going to get y equal to a number at the end. I'm just going to get y equal to stuff. Really, everything that's in this equation will be in my answer. It's just going to be in a different place. So we approach these just like we do any equation. We want to think opposite operations. So if I were trying to get y by itself, the fact that that's a positive 3x in front of it means I want to do the opposite. So if that's positive, the opposite is subtraction. So negative 4y equals, now I have a 7 and I have a minus 3x. Notice they are not like terms, so I'm just going to write what it says, 7 minus 3x. You cannot actually do the subtraction because one of them has an x, one of them does not. So again, I'm going to look over on my left-hand side. If that's negative 4y, that's multiplication. So the opposite is division, right? So divide by negative 4. I can write it with the division symbol like that, or I could show it like a fraction. In this case, showing it like the fraction might be easier because that's going to tell me that I am going to have 7 minus 3x on top with a negative 4 on the bottom, and that's actually going to be my answer. So notice that everything that was in the original question I still have. It's just all in a different spot, and my letter y is by itself. So let's take a look at number 2, and we're going to do the same thing. So this one says to solve our equation for the letter k. So one of the first things you want to do is really identify where is your letter that you're trying to solve for. So if you notice, letter K is on top of your fraction. So our goal is to get everything else on that left-hand side away from the letter K. So because it's currently part of a fraction is division, and so the opposite would be multiplication. So I am going to multiply both sides of my equation by 5. And so what happens when I do that is that's going to take the bottom of my fraction away, and I'm going to have k minus 2 equals, now this can multiply on the right. 5 times 11j is going to become 55j. So now I'm looking on the left-hand side and it says k minus 2. So again, we want to think opposite operations, right? So if it's a minus 2, opposite is going to be plus 2. That's going to make my 2's go away. So k will equal, and again, don't put things together if they don't match. So 55j plus 2 is going to be just that, 55j plus 2. Everything is still there, but now I have the k by itself just like they asked. So if we continue, 3 and 4 are simply more practice. So solve our equation for the letter n. So again, I'm looking where my letter n is. This time it's on the right. And so again, if I'm thinking opposite operations, if it's a plus 6p. The opposite would be a minus 6p to both sides. So over on the left, I have 15 minus 6p. And then on the right, I have 3n. Again, 15 and 6p don't match. One has a p and one does not. And so now when I look over on the right, I have 3 times n. So the opposite is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So that gives me 15 minus 6p all over 3 equals n. I'd like you guys to try number 4. So hit pause on the video and try number 4 on your own. So hopefully you've tried number 4 on your own. It asks you to solve your equation for the letter B. So again, think opposite operations. If it's a plus 12c, opposite is minus 12c. So that means that I'm going to have an equation that says 5b equals 9 minus 12c. I have 5 times b, so the opposite is division, so that the 5 goes away. And so now I have the letter B, 9 minus 12c on the top, with our 5 on the bottom. The biggest thing to get used to with these questions is that nothing really disappears. It's all just moving to a new location. So again, everything that was in the original equation is still somewhere in my answer. It's just in a new spot. One of the main ways that this shows up for us is when you're talking about a formula. So we have formulas for things like area and perimeter, volume. This says it's the formula for the circumference of a circle, and it says C equals 2 pi r, and it wants us to solve the formula for the radius. We do things like this when they give us circumference and we're trying to figure out how big that circle actually was in terms of its radius. So in this formula, 2 times pi times r, that is all multiplication. So if I'm trying to get r by itself, and this is all multiplication, that means I have to use division. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So on both sides, I need to divide not only by 2, but also the pi. And so I can actually divide them at the same time. That's going to give me C over 2 pi. The 2 is gone, the pi is gone, and that's going to equal our radius of r. If I keep going, this one says to solve my formula for the letter H. And so here we got to be careful because this, again, has kind of a lot going on. But always think about opposite operations and how we are going to get the variable we want by itself. So in this case, our H is on the top of our fraction. So that means that we need to get the fraction part to go away. So if a fraction is division, the opposite of division is multiplication. So if there's a 2 on the bottom, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. That will remove the bottom of my fraction. So 2 times A equals H parenthesis A plus B. So if I'm trying to get H by itself, a common mistake here is people would distribute the H to make the parentheses go away. But then I'll actually have H in 2 different places instead of just in 1. So again, the opposite operations. This is H times the parentheses. That's why we would normally distribute. So the opposite of multiplication is division. You can divide by a set of parentheses. So if I divide by the parenthesis A plus B, that whole set of parentheses is going to go away on the right-hand side. And so now I have 2A on the top, A plus B on the bottom, and we are equal to letter H. Okay? I know that solving these equations can be a little tricky because it's not quite the same as what you were doing before, because you don't get a specific number as an answer. Just remember it is all of the same steps. Okay? So, main thing, you need to make sure that the mixed practice on page 16 is finished and turned in. If that already is, you're welcome to move forward and start working on the homework that's associated with these notes. If not, you will have time with that assignment starting tomorrow. So make sure page 16 is finished and turned in if you did not take care of that yesterday. Have a great day, guys.